Just gonna give it a moment and let everybody join. But I am Mavis. I am founder of Smithery Style, and over the next half hour or so, I'm going to talk to you just about our company and what we've been doing to navigate sort of the times that we're in. So I'll just give it a couple minutes, and then we'll get started. Hi, Mom. You always love it when your mom is the first person to join. Okay, it's 12 o'clock, so I'm going to get started. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay. So far, so good in terms of my 3-year-old, as most of you can probably relate. You're working from home, you're joining these lives, and you're trying to keep them quiet and everybody in the household. So fingers crossed that works. So for the next little bit, I'm just going to give you a background on Smithery and sort of the steps that we've been taking in order to try and navigate the world as we know it right now, in terms of things that we're doing to survive this thing and hopefully come out on the other side. So first of all, Smithery is the concept is shop by shape. So what we do is we help women figure out what the body shape is, and then we give them tips and tricks for dressing for that shape. So for the most part, when we started, we were doing that all online. And what we found with our customers is that we've actually been following what they've been asking us to do. And we did open up a couple of studios along the way. But I know a lot of people ask me, how did we start Smithery? And what was happening is I used to work for an ad agency. And when I was at that ad agency, even though I sat on the executive team and, you know, I was leading 20 or more people, I wasn't confident in what I was doing every day. And so what I realized is that a lot of that came back to the wardrobe and what I was wearing. And so a colleague of mine, Rena, she would give me tips and tricks in terms of how to dress and what to do. And it became getting dressed in the morning so much easier. And it actually helped my confidence in every aspect of my life. So Rena and I thought there must be something here, and that's how Smithery was born. And our whole idea is to make women feel confident in the skin they're in the body that they're in, so that they don't have to stand in their closet every morning and be, oh God, I don't know what to wear, or how to wear it, that kind of thing. So on top of letting women know their body shapes and giving them tips and tricks for those shapes, we do work with brands as well in curating collections where we identify on our website is what pieces are good for what shape. So when we're buying, we're picking pieces that are specifically good for an X, an H, an A, V, an O, and really culling down our collections to make sure they're the best pieces for that. So I'll talk a bit about it later in terms of the brands we work with, because they've been doing some really great things too in terms of this whole thing and offering support for us. But that's sort of how Smithery started. And it was 5 years ago that Rena and I, whoops, that's my dog. 5 years ago that Rena and I ventured off to do this and eventually quit our day jobs for this to happen. And then at the time, neither of us were parents. I got pregnant, and then she got pregnant as well right after me, which was kind of ironic because I would say that our #1 customer base and the women that buy from us mostly, we call them new moms. And what we mean by that it's women who typically have children between 1 and 10 years old. Their lifestyles change, their bodies change, they don't have a lot of time. They're typically spending most of their money on their kids, let's face it. But we became moms too, so it really resonated with our customer base, and I feel like that actually helped grow the company as well. And then in 2019, at the beginning of 2019, Rena decided that she really wanted to focus on being a mom, and the partnership sort of broke up, and I became the sole owner of Smithery. And I have to say, 2019 was a really tough year. For any of you that have been through that before, it's hard, you know, when you start out a company, you never think that this day will come. So it's working through the financials and what the next steps are, and making sure that you had all the contracts in place to cover those things. And so 2019 was a really tough year. Personally, for Smithery, you know, there was a lot of financial burden that we had to take on as we decoupled, so the celebrities say. So going into 2020, we were very excited to kick off the new year. You know, it had been a tough year for the team at Smithery, and we had new goals that we wanted to take on, that we had set. We really reevaluated everybody's jobs and their descriptions at the end of December. So our team meets twice a year, and we sit down and we really think through as a team what those goals are, what our ambitions are, what we need to focus on, what we need to improve on. And in December, it felt really great because with the team, we gave ownership of pieces. So I let a lot of stuff go. And the team felt empowered. And to be honest, by February, we were hitting already some of the 2020 goals that we'd set out for ourselves. And then it hit, right? Just like everybody else. So early March, we kind of got stopped in our tracks, and it was a real hit to us because we were on such a high, and we had such big plans. And right away, we made some tough choices. So in terms of the people on the team, so we immediately went into how can we reduce our overhead? How can we cut costs as much as possible? What's going to be our strategies going forward through the next couple of months? At the time, we were thinking to survive, right? What can we do to really keep things moving and the business moving so that when we come out on the other side, we're still there. And we've really, we pride ourselves on our customer base. I know that on average, we have a higher than above average repeat customer. I do think it has to do with the way that our company is set up in terms of the one-on-one service that we give. That's really kept our customers around, and the value add that we give to them instead of just being a shop that they can buy clothes at. So as we're moving through this, we wanted to definitely keep those customers in mind and make sure that we weren't, I don't want to say exploit because that's a terrible word, but we wanted to make sure that we were always keeping their best interests in mind too, as we tried to come up with ideas and what we were going to do through this. So I made the hard decision of canceling 2 of the contracts for the Smithery girls, so which left then 3 of us to manage the business. That was probably the toughest decision because we were such a tight-knit group, and we had all come to these goals for 2020 together. I have to say that the girls were, gosh, I'm even tearing up talking about it, but the girls were so great. They totally understood. We were trying, and we worked together to figure out what the best solution for them was as well. So we took those steps. We really started evaluating all of the brands that were coming in. So I know most of you are probably familiar, but what we do is we buy 6 months ahead of time for the season. So we had already committed to a lot of orders for spring, and spring being one of our busiest seasons and where we actually spend most of the money. So we started really working with the brands to figure out can you hold off on keeping some of those things, keeping in mind that it's a trickle effect through the whole industry, right? So we're getting hit, they're getting hit, feeling bad for them, and just trying to come up with solutions that would work for both of us. So, you know, I have to give kudos to Stacy and her team at Jade Sales. They represent Canadian brands such as Gentle Fawn, Smash and Tess, and they really worked with us to offer discounts where they could. And I thought what went really above and beyond is they created like a marketing kit and how to online market your business, and they sent that out to the retailers to sort of help them through that. They were giving us images, high-res images for the pieces that we were carrying because we're no longer able to do shoots. So that was a key pivotal point for us. And then also I'd say Amir, who owns Pink Martini, they're based out of Toronto. He also really pivoted in terms of being really fair to his retailers and saying, I know all of you can't accept your orders right now. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna allow you to drop ship. And so he even gave instructions on how to set that up in your back end to help us as well. So another thing that we've like consciously been trying to do is definitely treat those wholesalers and the brands that we're working with the utmost respect, and not just going dark on them and trying to pay our bills as much as we can as well, because we know it's a long-term game, right? In terms of we want to keep those partnerships, and we really do take a lot of effort in terms of figuring out what brands we carry at Smithery. So we have a lot of criteria that we go through, including like it needs to be high quality. The price, 90% of the pieces need to be under $150 retail. We want Canadian brands, up and coming brands as much as possible. So they are really true partnerships, and that's been important to us as we sort of go through this. Another thing that I decided to do personally is, you know, all throughout Smithery, as most of you small business owners know, is that I continued freelancing. So I've been freelancing off and on throughout the 5 years, but I stepped up my freelance hours during this, knowing that I could try and put any money that I would have been taking back into the company and figuring out how to do that as much as possible. So it hasn't been easy, to say the least. And I would say that Heather and Susan have really stepped up in terms of taking on a lot of the legwork when it comes to the pieces that we're doing to keep the business moving. But all pieces that we've been taking, because Smithery actually hasn't been able to take advantage of any of the government funding, which I think is amazing of what they've done. But we've yet to take advantage of that, just because there's always a clause that makes us ineligible. So for example, all of the girls that work for me are on contract part-time, so I don't have anyone on payroll, so that sort of exceed us out of a lot of those. So we've been on our own, and then trying to get through to a bank, as you all know, to figure out loans and that kind of thing is a job in amongst itself. So the other thing that I did in 2019, and Hillary talked about this on live earlier, is that I recognize like there's weaknesses in terms of what I offer, my skills, and we hired a really great lawyer who Ashley, she was on live as well. I feel really lucky to have her. We hired a really great PR person, Hank PR, who helped move our business, and then switched accountants as well. So, you know, one of my recommendations, and I know it's so hard, especially in times like this, is figure out what keeps you up at night. What do you worry about the most? That's usually the thing that is like the weakness about you in terms of, you know, the things that you need to work on, and it's worth the investment. Unfortunately for PR, you know, that was one of the things we had to cut in March. And I probably every day, still to this day, rethink that in terms of how maybe we can engage Allie again. So we were on retainer with her. And now I'm thinking, is there a way that we can do project-based as well? Because there have been a couple of things that have moved the needle for us since this thing happened that Allie had helped us with. So that's kind of what we did going in to COVID. And then I would say I want to share with you, I guess, really what we've been doing to pivot and what has worked, because by all means, I want everybody to be able to share this and use it if they can. So in March, then I immediately reforecasted what our goals were for the coming year. So I basically cut all of our monthly targets, financial targets, by 50%. And that's what the industry was saying, is that clothing, retail clothing sales had gone down by 50%. So those were the numbers that I was using to reforecast. So not only did we reduce, our financial targets, that means I had to reduce all costs by 50% as well. So literally, we've just been ticking off things and like the smallest things in terms of like, is our internet, do we need as much internet as we had before? Is it the right? Can we get a cheaper rate? So just looking at every sort of line item in the budget to reduce those costs and reduce overhead as much as possible. And then the other thing is in terms of like smaller things that have really moved the needle for us during this whole time, and that, it takes a pandemic to be like, why didn't I do that before? Is a couple of things that we did right away that we noticed changed our business. So we're on Shopify. And what we did is we accepted most payments, but we did have a couple of customers that were asking us on occasion if they could e-transfer us. We knew them, so of course we said yes, but we thought, like, why can't we offer e-transfer on a wider scale? So it was an easy thing to do in the back end of Shopify, and literally probably I'd say it's a little lower, maybe 20% of the purchases that are made on our site right now are now done through e-transfer, something that we didn't offer before. And as a small business, it's actually beneficial to us as well, because the money goes directly into our bank account. We don't have to wait for Shopify to give us that money, and we're not paying the credit card fees on top of that as well. So we're like, easy fix, made a huge difference to our business as we're moving through this. The other thing that we're just implementing now as well is Sezzle. So I saw it, I had seen it on a couple of Canadian companies such as Nix and Smash and Test. And what that does is it allows customers to make installment payments as well with, they don't pay any of the interest. So we as a company will take that on, but we're going to test that over the next while too and let people make, like it's 4 easy installments. Do I sound like a TV commercial right there? In terms of that, but just another option, because I know people are afraid to spend credit right now, or might be afraid to spend with credit right now. So just trying to create different options in terms of that. And then I'll have to say, like, I'm sure all of you and the teams that you're working with are dealing with this in different aspects. And between Heather, Susan, and I, as same thing, we're all trying to manage this and our lives and what our lives were before this as we're moving through this. And, we've been incredibly lucky that Susan has been our cheerleader and motivator. So on days when Heather and I are like, oh, she has definitely been the one to kick us in the butt and be like, we have to do this, like, we have to show up. So I would say the thing that has worked for us during this is being consistent. So Susan, at noon every day on Instagram, she gets on stories and we show up every single day. And the amount of comments and DMs that we've gotten now from that in terms of like, these tips are so helpful, I look forward to it every day, it's my break in amongst the chaos, has been like overwhelming, nothing we could have imagined. So we've been really consistent in terms of how we show up, even though we're all dragging our heels too and feeling that every day. So the other thing that we're doing during the Instagram stories and showing up at 12 o'clock is that we're also giving away more information than we've ever given away. And I would say the team's always toyed with this about how much do we just give people without them purchasing an online style session or coming in to see us. And we've decided, you know what, now's the time. So, we've shown up and we've said, okay, today's A shape. Here are the tips and tricks for A shape. We've been putting all of the clothes on Susan, myself, or Heather, and we've been showing them, because we're all 3 different body shapes, so we're trying to, even though we can't photograph it on different body shapes, we're trying to give that same experience online. And Susan's been really good at giving tips and tricks on how to style those pieces as well. So when she puts them on is, you know, here's how you layer on a 3rd piece with that. Here's, you should half tuck this. It goes great with skinny denim. All things that we do in one-on-one sessions or online style sessions. And to be honest, it's driven sales. So again, we're like, why didn't we do this sooner? So because I think people trust us, right? And we're giving them advice and more information on the pieces than they can see on a site in a static photo. So that's really worked for us as well. Also as a team, because we are disjointed, is we established twice weekly status calls. So the 3 of us get on calls twice a week. Because we can't plan out our content as far in advance, is we're meeting twice a week to figure out, like, what does the next week look like? What are we going to be talking about? What new arrivals make sense to bring in? So we've been more specific than ever in terms of making sure the pieces that we're bringing in are relevant to this day and age as well. And then the other thing as well, so one of the other things that we've done is part of the 2020 plan. To be honest, we were lucky because part of our goal was to increase our online sales. So that was good. But we also wanted to really pop up across the country and get outside of just our local GTA. And we had planned, we had actually had on the books so many events, which breaks my heart. And as those started, as the dates started to come that those were supposed to happen, we started trying to think, like, how can we make these happen again? So we had a lot of requests for us to be in Oakville, and we had that in the books for in April. So what we did instead is all of the ladies and businesses that we were going to pop up with in Oakville, we got them together and we're like, hey, do you want to do this? Like, do you want to do it? We're going to call it a virtual happy hour. And do you want to join us? You'll each have a few minutes to talk about, like, your product or your expertise. We'll do giveaways, make it really fun. And that worked out so well for us in terms of, I think we had 150 women RSVP to that. And I think about, like, half showed up because we're doing them as free events. But for me, I know personally that really filled my cup, and I felt even more connected to our customers than I had before, because there was names and faces that I'd seen come through orders that I'd never met before. So we'd actually continued that. We just did another virtual happy hour, and we're creating themes. We did a mom's one leading up to Mother's Day, and we're going to continue those as we move forward, because it also exposes other small businesses that women might not know about. So we're trying to always continue to invite those people as well for those. And then the other thing, and I know a lot of small businesses are grappling with this, is how do we give back? So how are we continuing to give back through all of this when we don't even know if we're going to have enough money to run the company sort of that month? So we had established also in 2019 that our charity of choice is Pink Pearl Canada. So it was very easy for us to think about deviating on that right now. But when we talked it through, we realized, like, Pink Pearl, they're struggling too. They're a charity. They're running like a small business. They can use the support. And in fact, at the end of April was supposed to be their biggest fundraising event of the year. So we did a collaboration with Mayland Jewelry on a Pink Pearl bracelet. And some of the proceeds go to Pink Pearl. What else did we do? We did a giveaway leading up to that as well. And we've really focused that we'll continue. That will be our charitable efforts as we move forward. And it feels right, and it feels they need the help as well. So we'll continue doing that throughout the year. The other thing that we've loved doing during this, that we always said we wanted to do but just didn't do for some reason, is the surprise and delight, especially with everybody at home and missing, like, one-on-one interactions. Having something show up at your door unexpected It's very exciting. Ask my 3-year-old. She's very excited about it all the time. And she's actually very disappointed when the packages are not for her, because we have all the returns from Smithery coming here in inventory and that kind of thing. So she's becoming very spoiled. But we did with top customers, you know, like one of our top customers, she was trying to decide between a few pieces and had emailed us today saying, like, I really love that top, but it's just not, I'll get it when we go back to work. I just can't justify buying that right now. And literally, she's been with us for all 5 years. So then when we packaged up her package, we included that top with her. We also, like, we did a collab for Smithery bracelets, and we sent a bracelet to one of the customers that had, you know, kind of sparked that e-transfer. Us putting in the e-transfer piece. So we sent her a bracelet just saying, like, thank you for pushing us to do that. So we're trying to do those type of things. In the virtual happy hours, for example, we gave all the moms a Smithery gift card this past week, which they didn't know or expect. So I think doing that is really important in the long run as well, and making sure that your customers are feeling appreciated, where their dollars are going and how they're spending their money. And then I would say, so the other thing too is I would say that we've really focused on metrics that we might not have focused on before. So the things that have become really important to us is our return rate. So especially when we're doing videos where we're giving more information on products, we want that return rate to go down. We're also very conscious of it because what we did during this time is we offered free returns on pieces as well and free exchanges. So we're really watching that metric right now to figure out where that sits. And we're trying to keep that below like 8%. And then the other conversion rate is extremely important to us. And right now, especially with everything driven online and so much happening on our website, we see the stats are going up every day in terms of how many people, how many visitors are on our site, is that we're really paying attention to the conversion rate and where people are dropping off. And over the next few weeks, we're going to be focusing on making tweaks to the site that will make the experience better for the customer and then, in fact, convert them for sales for us. So, you know, making our site more mobile friendly. Where are people dropping off, and going through that experience and figuring out why. Another thing that we implemented too is porch drop-offs for local folks. So, which might be the bane of our existence. Susan and I do them with our families. And, but again, when you see someone on the porch being like, thank you, or in their yard when you're dropping it off, it warms the heart, definitely makes it worth it. But right now, like, porch drop-offs are the default shipping, and we can't change that with Shopify. We've tried. And so we're just trying to figure out, okay, everybody keeps on picking porch drop-offs, even though they live in Saskatchewan or in different parts of the province. So how can we tweak that to make it a better experience too, so that we're not like reaching out to people and being like, you select porch drop-off, can you actually pay the rest of the shipping? And I have to say, like, through all of those small tactics, like, that's the advice I would give people, is don't think that you need to change your business in this big momentous way. I would say just think of all the little things that you can do. And what we're seeing with our business, instead of dropping 50% in sales, we actually managed to only drop we've only managed to drop 40% in sales. So, which is huge. And I have to give, you know, kudos to the brands that we work with and the girls on the team and all of our customers. But I really think, you know, we talk a lot, we're on calls and we're talking a lot about how we're so surprised and shocked that we're doing this and that we're doing better than we thought we would. But what we've tried to do is give ourselves a little pat on the back and be like, no, it's a lot of efforts and little changes that we're making. And I think that, you know, every business can sort of do those things at the end. And I hope that some of these tips and tricks that you can put into your business and practice, like, as well, in terms of that, because yeah, we're just trying to sort of, our messaging from the beginning has been you know, stay true to our value proposition, which is body shape and the tips and tricks, but also how can we support other small businesses through this by showcasing them on our site or including them or sharing these lessons learned and that kind of thing. So I will wrap that up. I feel like I've talked long enough and very quickly, which is a habit of mine. If you have any questions for me further or for the company further, don't hesitate. I think Donna, who's organized this, she said that people could send questions to live@cafaawards.ca, and just know that there's only one A, so it's CAFAWARDS.ca. So I'm happy to answer any follow-up questions that you have, and hopefully you've gotten some value out of this, and I hope that everybody has been keeping safe and sane. So thank you for having me.